Linus, congratulations on your Oscar nomination for La La Land. It was one of 14 overall nominations that the film received. How did it feel when you got the news you'd been nominated and that the film had tied this record number of overall nominations?
It was, I was obviously incredibly honored, and it was a very, it was just an amazing moment where I felt that so happy for Damien and the whole crew to get recognized for something that we worked so hard for, you know, and that I also feel is a film that really is something that, you know, brings joy to people, and you know, doesn't contain much of cynicism or anything like that other than inspiration. And it's really great that it's being recognized, I think. So I'm really happy for Damien, especially, actually. But obviously I feel very honored.
Well, you guys just had a good night at the BAFTAs last Sunday. Were you at the BAFTAs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I flew in, and we were a big gang there, actually, from La La Land, which was also great to celebrate that together, you know.
Right. Well, congratulations on your BAFTA win and on your Oscar nomination.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's talk a bit about the film. There's a lot to talk about, but first I just want to ask a general question about when you came onto the project, what were some visual inspirations for the film?
Well, first of all, a lot of the inspiration for me was the music, actually, because it was very emotional, and also the story was very emotional. But we also, I mean, Damien really wanted us to make a film in the same sort of atmosphere and as the films that were made in the 50s Hollywood, since that was a big deal, a big amount of the whole inspiration for the project. And I mean, we watched old musicals, but also older Hollywood productions for inspiration, and it was a matter of trying to make a film that is set in the present day on relocations as a contemporary film, but inspired by the backlot style Hollywood filmmaking, you know. So we didn't really, you know, make the film on backlots. We made all of the film on locations, even though some locations were backlots, you know, like the studio of Warner. But other than that, the locations were, you know, relocations, but we used the aesthetics of the backlot style. So that worked a lot as an inspiration, the actual, you know, 50s movies. But it was also important to use a lot of the contemporary sort of colors of the nights, or the real world that we have, where we used like a lot of, you know, Mercury vapor street lights that we just made, we sort of enhanced and tried to make more theatrical, so that the style of the lighting, for example, at nights were very much half realistic, but and heightened, you know.
Right. Talk a bit about creating the color palette for the movie, because it's very rich and colorful, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, obviously, from the 50s and the Technicolor movies, like films like A Star Is Born, or other films that were shot in you know, in the Technicolor colors. We really wanted the film to feel rich, but you know, it's also tricky to saturate a film in post, for example. I really believe in capturing the colors as they are, and then be very true with the grade of the film, and not do much of a post-production manipulation. And that's something that both me and Damien connected on, was that we really wanted to make a film as they did it back then too, which was really by crafting it in camera and capturing everything for real in camera. So we worked out together with David Wasco and Mary Sofris a color palette where we discussed what would be the most sort of appropriate color palettes for the film. And some colors had to do with you know, the arc of the characters, like Emma is changing her colors throughout the film, from being sort of a younger aspiring actress to becoming a more mature actress. And but other than that, we had a lot of discussions about the romantic Los Angeles, where part of it is like the nights that we wanted to be blue instead of black skies. We had blue skies, and the evenings were like this magic hour, pink skies. And instead of using like sodium vapor streetlights, we felt that the mercury vapor streetlight color in combination with blue skies or pink skies had more of a romantic color palette, And then we discussed everything in combination with what costumes are we going to use, or what colors do we have on the sets, where sometimes the sets were driving the color palette more, and sometimes the lighting and the colored lights were driving it more. So but in general, the Los Angeles we wanted to portray had lots of blues and greens and pinks for the nights, for the romantic moments, in contrast to then colors of the cast, that could be yellow, for example, or something. So in that way, everything is actually achieved. All those colors are achieved in camera, and then in combination by shooting on film, you capture more of the richness in the colors, and automatically without needing to do post-production manipulation.
That's really amazing to think about. I mean, so often you hear about these kinds of things being created in post-production, but I mean, to create it on set, does it create more work for you, or do you feel like it's
I actually think, like, on all films I do, I always strive to capture everything in camera. I think to me it always looks fake, or like an Instagram effect to do manipulation in post that is excessive. You want to capture everything as much as you can in camera, and I think it's a great to me, for any production, it's actually easier for me to work on film and to work with trying to capture everything on set, because it's otherwise I just I'm just blind to what I'm doing if I don't already do it on set. So but in this case we had more issues of achieving things because we wanted to capture exactly a specific moment, like a magic hour sky that lasts for 20 minutes, and we need to do a 6-minute take in that amount of time. And those things obviously complicated things by making us forcing us to do a lot of rehearsing and a lot of planning.
Right. One of the the real, I think, centerpiece visually of this film are these elaborate dance numbers that you guys shoot for the most part in one take, as far as I can tell, for most of them. Talk about the decision to shoot these dance numbers without cutting.
Well, for one, I think anyone who's seen the film would probably agree to that if those dance numbers would have been cut up, it wouldn't have been as magic, and I think that is what they already realized back when they did the musicals, the classic Hollywood musicals, in long takes as well. So partly it's inspired by the old musicals, how they shot dance numbers in single takes, and in combination with that, it's just gives you the sense that it's, to us it was obvious, it gives us the sense that we're present and that we're involved, and that everything that you see is authentic and happens for real and doesn't have any cheats. It's like actually happening, and you're there to explore it. And when you look at older musicals, sometimes they rather move fairly two-dimensional, and in our case what we tried to do then was to utilize Steadicams and cranes to get around and involve ourselves even more with the dancers, as if the audience is sort of partaking in the dancing, and being also rhythmical, and move with the music in rhythm, so that the camera moves actually works a little bit like a musical instrument.
We'll talk about that opening number on the highway. I mean, it must have been very difficult to shoot. Living out in Los Angeles, I can only imagine how difficult it was to shut down part of a highway for any amount of time. But
Yeah.
I mean, right from the very beginning of the movie, you place the audience right into the mood of the film. So talk a bit about creating that opening.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole point, I think, for Damien, was to both establish Los Angeles, and there's this comic idea about that. And any time of year, you have this the sense of the same look of the city. It's like always summer, sort of, no matter what time of year it is. And then you have all these people who are so different, but they're all dreamers, and they're all coming out of the cars to establish sort of the whole magic musical already in the first number, in the first shot of the film. But achieving it was tricky because it was always a dance number on the freeway. So we started to rehearse with Mandy Moore those and dancers on a parking lot in the production office parking lot, and we set up the choreography and the camera choreography, and we looked at it more or less like Steadicam moves around the dancers. And when we found the location, we realized that we loved the location. Was a ramp, and a freeway could also not be a ramp, but the ramp was kind of special because you could see downtown from the viewpoint, and we just had to be there. But then there is this huge obstacle, which was this concrete median, in the middle, that created some issues, technical issues, because you can't pass you can't pass like with a Steadicam through that concrete median that was 4 foot tall. So without like walking over it and changing the height of the camera, so we had to work with the crane and sort of refigure a little bit the choreography. But also suddenly we found ourselves needing a camera base for the crane that could move, and that had to be a vehicle that had to take a footprint out of the first row of cars. And we had to plan everything out on a paper and on this parking lot by having Damien be the camera and I'm the crane base, and we tried to figure out how far we need to travel with a crane in order to get around, and that complicated things, because we also started to create shadows with the crane arm. So we had to figure out a way to make the choreography in a way that we didn't shadow the actors, but also what time of day could we possibly shoot in order not to shadow the actors. And it was a combination of all these things that made us decide to we actually do 2 hidden cuts in the dance number, so that we could shoot at different times a day to accommodate not shadowing the cast. But the sense of one long take was important, so we rather did a whip pan it already had a whip pan actually planned in those moments, but we could then make a cut in those whip pans and then work around the sun angles for not shadowing. But it was it was very, very tricky, and every day almost on the shoot we had those issues where we had very high ambitions, but found ourselves doubting our ability to actually achieve what we wanted to achieve. And every day we found ourselves, actually getting through it and making things work. And that was really something I think all of us learned, was that if you just really believe in it and everyone works very focused on trying to achieve things, you can make it happen, And but for that opening number, we also rehearsed on set for one entire weekend, and So we actually locked off that freeway on 2 weekends, 1 weekend for rehearsals and 1 weekend for shooting.
Wow, that's a perverse sequence.
Yeah.
In terms of, talk a little bit about some of the other numbers in the film, some of the challenges of those, like the one at Griffith Observatory where they're flying around, and the one where they've just left the party and they're dancing outside. And I mean, what were some of the other complications of these big numbers?
Well, for example, after the party, when they were walking up on that Griffith Park Mulholland Drive scene, I remember when we came there, when we found that location, we already had the choreography of the dancers and the camera pretty much figured out, because we wanted to find a location like that. But coming to that location is a big curve and up in the mountains, and at first we all felt like that location was completely impossible to shoot at, because it had there was like no place to put the crane. When we thought about it, like, where can we put the actual crane to do this, and where can we put the light condors for lighting, and because this was also meant to be in magic hour then. So that was a very complicated scene to figure out, because also the dancers found that, well, the choreographer found that because it was an incline, it was hard to dance, Mm-hmm. So they had to come to location to rehearse the dancing, and we were there to rehearse it with them. And because the length of the take we needed to shoot on a crane for the magazine of the camera had to be a 1,000-footer, so it was tricky to do on a Steadicam, and there was all these kinds of things that made it harder. But by rehearsing a lot, and then on the shooting day actually rehearsed the entire day from 7 in the morning to 7 in the night, we started shooting at 7 p.m. to 7:45. We got 5 takes, whereof 2 were good for light. And then we came back on the Friday, the day after, and started shooting there between 7 and 7:45, 5 takes, got 2 more takes in good light. And out of those 4 takes, Damien picked 1, But there's no, like, the sky is real. Whatever happens in that scene is real. There's like no cheats, So that was a great feeling to actually achieve a scene, in that timing, with the actors actually acting and dancing and singing, hitting marks. It was so many marks to hit, and but most days was actually like that. Also, also normal scenes, like even when Ryan meets his sister in his apartment is one long take as well, that we just trimmed to get tighter and tighter. And also that was, somewhat a challenge, but it was, So there was a lot of those situations, but it was great. It was fun.
Right. And the ending of the movie is really extraordinary. I wanted to talk a bit about that because it's evocative of, those musicals like The Bandwagon and American in Paris, and it also works as like an epilogue to the movie. Designing that sequence, can you talk a bit about that?
Well, that sequence was, Damien had so much of this film in his head in because he's a very, musical director, and not only that he knows about music, but he's thinking in a musical way, I think. And that whole epilogue is really scripted in the script, just like that. It's a lot about art direction and nods to old musicals, like you say, like The Bandwagon, and also other musicals, and it is about expressing the emotions, obviously, and to travel through those magical sort of situations to the music. And it was very much driven by the music, for the camera to be rhythmical with the music. So camera and light wise, we totally was, influenced and driven by how the music worked, and how about that. But other than that, it was it was sort of a theatrical version of the real life, and the combination of Damien's really strong vision of how to do that with the collaboration with David Wasco and Mary.
And you, of course.
And me. Yeah.
Well, Linus, congratulations again, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Okay.